Russia unleashed a wave of airstrikes across Ukraine's capital overnight, claiming several lives. Officials say drone and missiles struck residential buildings and sparked explosions and fires throughout Kyiv. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia launched at least 430 drones and 18 missiles during the attack. The CBC's Anna Cunningham is on this story. She joins us now live from London with more on all of this. So, Anna, what can you tell us about this Russian attack?
Well, Hilary, this was clearly a huge attack overnight, and it was focused on the capital, Kyiv. Let's just take a look at some of those images again from overnight. Sustained bombardments by Russia right across Ukraine's capital. They came from Russian drones and also missiles. Ukraine's military says 11 apartment blocks actually took direct hits. There were also 9 regions that had fires across the capital. I mean, you can see that huge explosion there. Emergency services working through the night, trying to get to those injured. Now, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has been posting his reaction in a number of social media posts. Let's take a look at some of what he's said. President Zelensky writing, "Once again, Russia has launched a heinous attack against Ukraine, our people and ordinary residential buildings." Now, in another post, he says, "This was a deliberately calculated attack aimed at causing maximum harm to people and civilian infrastructure." And he goes on to say, "We need reinforcement with additional systems and interceptor missiles. Europe and the United States can help. We are counting on real decisions." Now, Hilary, we know that recently Russia's focused attacks on eastern Ukraine, trying to really advance its front line there. But Ukraine overnight has also launched its own strikes on Russia. Let's just bring in some footage that's been released by the Ukrainian Presidential Press Service. Now, this reportedly shows the launch of long Neptune cruise missiles, which President Zelensky says were used overnight on targets in Russia. There is footage as well that's been released by the Russian Ministry of Defense that shows damage said to have been caused by these strikes on Russia's Black Sea port of Novorossiysk. You can see these are the images that are actually from Russia, the damage reportedly caused by those strikes that have been made by Ukraine. But let's just take you back to the daylight images in Kyiv to give you an idea of the extent of the damage to some apartment blocks there in the daylight. There were actually some apartment blocks that were under construction, and the rubble was littering corridors there. There were windows blown through, and no tenants in one apartment block that was hit by Russia. But others in Kyiv, they were not so fortunate. As you can see, the emergency services taking people out of there, and clearly those residents visibly upset.
Anna, the European group of 5 defense ministers, they've been meeting in Berlin today to discuss their support for Ukraine. So what if anything, came out of those talks?
Yeah, look, Germany's defence minister, Boris Pistorius, he's been hosting this meeting in Berlin with his counterparts from the UK, France, Italy and Poland. We know that Germany today has agreed that it's going to give at least $245 million, obviously in euros, towards a package of weapons to be delivered, it says, to Ukraine. Let's take a listen to Britain's Defence Secretary, who really seemed to give a warning that Europe is in a new era of threat that needs a new era of defence. Take a listen.
The threats against our nations and against Europe have only increased, with reckless drone incursions into Poland, Russian jets flying over Estonia, and NATO nations consulting through Article 4, not once but twice. Russian aggression is growing, the war in Ukraine continues to rage, and the US has rightly challenged European nations to do more and to spend more on defence.
Clearly, there are many nations who are ramping up their spending on defence and also their support for Ukraine. Evidently, no end in sight for the war at the moment.
Anna, thank you for all of this. The CBC's Anna Cunningham in London for us.